Hello and welcome to the Knowledge is Power podcast. I'm your host, Max Willett, and today we have another special guest because all my guests are special. His name is Benjamin Blackett, and I met him through a business networking group in Rhode Island, and he is another local business owner, life mastery consultant, which is probably the greatest thing I've heard, just like a subtitle for a business is pretty awesome. So, Benjamin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
So, as he said, Max, thank you for inviting me to be here. I'm honored and privileged to be here with you. I feel like congratulations on doing your podcast. That's an awesome venture. Something I might have to look into doing myself, but I haven't yet, and I've got way too many other things on the plate anyhow. So yes, I am a life mastery consultant, which means essentially I help people pull their dreams into their lives. That's what my business is about. And I have been doing that for about 4.5 years now.
Pretty cool. So you want to tell us a little bit about just like your personal background, if you feel like sharing, where you came from, what you've been doing, and sort of like that.
Sure. So well, the thing I always start with is what it took to get to be a life coach, because when I started being a life coach, I actually had been working in a boatyard. I was working in a boatyard in Jamestown. You know Jamestown, right?
Yeah.
So facing Narragansett Bay, facing Newport, Fort Adams, out across the bay, was the 7th winter in a row that I had worked there, and I know it was a Thursday because it was the 4th day in a row where we had this 5 degrees, -35 wind chill factor coming down out of the northeast, that wind blowing right off the bay.
Oh my God, that's cold.
That is a cold day. It's
Yeah.
true. No matter how you slice it, that's a cold day. And, I had just rolled my tools out to start work for the day. I had put my tools up onto this boat that was covered with plastic, and I had a little space heater that was, I don't know. I'm audio. I can't show you. So.
Yeah. Well, we're taping it too. So.
Oh, we're taping too.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a little, 6-inch anyhow, space heater, and that's just not that much, even covered in plastic.
Yeah.
When you got 35-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I doing here? I had just spent the previous 3 nights in a row, I got home from work 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I literally fell onto my bed and I slept through till it was time to get up and do it the next morning.
Yeah.
I was like, I cannot keep doing this. This is not a full, rich life that I would like to live.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting time to socialize. I'm not getting time to travel. I'm not getting time to... I was feeling dejected. I was feeling, I would say, even hopeless. I was like, what is going on? So the thing is, though, that underneath that, I had been calling myself a life coach for years. And the fact is that, in truth, I had been helping people all along, doing really well at, improving their lives. I just couldn't, if you had asked me what kind of system I was using or how I was helping people make their lives better, I couldn't have told you.
Yeah.
I couldn't have pinpointed and said, well, this is exactly what I'm doing. But it was that moment in the boatyard where I was like, I have got to do something to make myself a viable business of being a life coach. And I ended up having some things fall into my life where I found my current mentor, who is Mary Morrissey, whose programs essentially I teach. And I found out that, first of all, I ended up taking a class with her through a spiritual center up in Warwick. And I was 4 or 5 classes into the work, and I was like, I'm going to teach this because this makes perfect sense and it explains everything I've been doing. I'm like, oh, I get it. And so I then found out that there was a way to train with her, and I didn't even know she offered that, but it was, I went through some grueling stuff. I had to find the time, I had to find the money, I had to put in the hours doing the work, and as I was applying these principles that I teach, all of that came into place so that I could do that. It happened because I was putting started understanding about the fact that what I think about produces itself in my life, which is really one of the most powerful things that anybody can know, if you want my opinion.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess another thing is, could you explain your business model, I guess, in a sense? Like, you say life mastery consultant or a life coach. Like, what does that involve in a sense?
So for me, what I work on doing is helping people get from point A to point B. I help them, and for a lot of people, they come to me and they don't necessarily know what their dreams are sometimes. I mean, a lot of us, we keep these dreams out there where we can't quite get to them. We say, oh, I want to do this someday maybe, or, I would love to do that. But we think, oh, well, I can't really do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. And we put all these things in front of ourselves for reasons that we can't. I like to call it, we think we have these causes why we can't, but we're smarter than that. We call them our B causes. We say, I can't because I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough education, I don't have, the kids aren't in school, the kids are in school, the kids aren't out of school, I'm married, I'm not married, I have to wait till I retire, like whatever we put in the way. But the thing is, I end up taking, I help people understand that there is a vision, first of all, that they do have, and that they can pull it into their lives. They can actually live it now. They can start living it when they start stepping into it. And for me, that involves, if somebody wants to work with me, I can't take anybody in for less than 90 days. I have to have 90 days where we can start working with some principles and start teaching them some tools to get them to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah. Because, during our BNI meetings, you come up with some very cool stuff every week and sometimes some great testimonials from people. And I think, what was it, last week or a week before, somebody had visited for you or substituted?
Last week, yes.
Last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she couldn't say more great things about you and the work you've done. So, I mean, she was a little quiet first, but she was able to talk and said some great things about you. So I guess sort of what entails with sort of reaching your goals. What do you think is the main thing, other than, saying I can't do it, or, especially in today's society for a lot of kids? I like to stay on this topic, but I've been talking about the value of a college education, mm-hmm. and what that means in the real world. And should I get one, or just should somebody get one in general? And is it really useful for modern day society, and really a world, especially that I've grown up in, where you've been told your whole life, you need to get one, There's mm-hmm. no way around
mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of how you're talking about reaching your goals, do you think that a college degree is necessary in reaching your goals in life? I know it's sort of different for everybody, but just in general, I know it's sort of a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. It's a good question, though, and it depends on the person. It depends on what their passion is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, because sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now, as a matter of fact, as you mentioned that, it happens that the person who came in to substitute for me last week, one of her great achievements right now is that she's getting her bachelor's degree, which was something that seemed out of sight and unreasonable for her at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But her getting a bachelor's degree is appropriate to what she wants to do, like
mm-hmm.
where she wants to go and the things that she wants to do. But I mean, you're a great example to me, Max. As a matter of fact, I really admire what you do, because you've got this 3D printing business, and it's brilliant, and you've got great energy for it. And you're innovative, and you've got to me, people who have passion for what they want to do, they're going to go far. So
thank you.
So, if you've got a passion for something, not necessarily, if you've got a passion, you're driven. I mean, and you ask that question, when I'm speaking, when I give talks, I go in and I give talks places and whatnot. I quote people like Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison didn't get out beyond third grade. And
I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't.
He didn't get. Yeah, in third grade, they said you're not intelligent enough. You should go see what you can do to get along socially with people, because you're just not that bright. And he is probably the most innovative inventors of our times.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fact that we didn't even have electric light before Thomas Edison, like he had this idea, he had this passion that he was going to bring electric light to the world to free us from the need of oil and wood for burning, like for light after dark, because that was all we had. And yes, he went through 10,000 failures in order to get there, but he did it. And through the process, I mean, he's the reason that we had recorded sound. I mean, that we even have in essence, this is a far advanced from what he started, but he started with those, going to see his workshop. It's where he did his inventing. It's been taken apart and recreated in the what is it? Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of the town. Henry Ford built a museum out in Dearborn, Michigan. Yeah, the Henry Ford. I don't know if you've ever heard of, been to, whatever, but it's all about the history from the early 1900s till now in American innovation. And he built, I think it's Ellington. I can't remember. I don't know. There's a little village he built. He got the museum done, and then he built a village. And in that village, he did things like he took apart Thomas Edison's workshop, both of them, the one in New Jersey and also the one from Fort Myers, Florida, and he took them apart board by board, nail by nail, and put them back exactly as they came apart in this village. He also did that with the Wright brothers bicycle shop and the Wright brothers home and the original courthouse that Abraham Lincoln practiced law in, and Daniel Webster's house, for the Webster Dictionary. And so it's an amazing place to go and stand in in the energy of that kind of creation. And Henry Ford himself, we think of Ford Motor Company and like how that made cars available to everybody. And Henry Ford, he had three different factory businesses before that. He created the assembly line, essentially, is what he did. And he had three different businesses that failed before he got to making the Ford. And so at 53 years old is when he started the Ford Motor Plant. And that's like that, so that speaks volumes. I don't know. Do you need a college education? He didn't have a college education either, but he had a mastermind that he hung out with. Thomas Edison was in his mastermind. So what do you think about Tesla, that guy? What was this for? Nikola Tesla? Yes. Do you have any opinions on him? Because a lot of people say that he was better than Thomas Edison. Well, I don't know as much about Nikola Tesla, and the basic reason I don't is because in my studies and what I study is because I study what a person can do with their mind. Yeah. And the kind of power we have for creation. I mean, and I often refer to Thomas Edison and Henry Ford because that's who I was taught. Well, look at these examples, and this is how. And Henry Ford has a quote that I use all the time too. He says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. Yeah. Whichever one you think is right is right. Yeah. 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 So actually, I wanted to pick your brain about, I don't know if I told you this yet, but I've thought of like this quote that I sort of has came to my mind. I don't know if somebody else said it, but it's something that I think I want to base my life off of from, going on henceforth and patience is a virtue, right? Everybody knows that quote. Patience is a virtue, but the ability to know when to be patient is even more important because life's too short to always be patient. That's true too. And I'm not familiar. Do you know where that quote came from? No, I just thought of it. I don't know. Just thought of it, came to your mind just now. Yeah. Well, not like right now, but like a couple of days ago. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah. But in essence, just came to you. Yeah. So here's the thing that that comes to my mind, particularly when I'm working with people. There's, the fact is that what we live in is an eternal moment of now. Like all the stuff that's passed, even yesterday, I mean, we had our meeting, you and I had our meeting yesterday morning, and like now that's all gone. But it also is an eternal now because it's like, so there's now, we were in the meeting now, and we're here, you and I talking together now, and then anything that comes forward is now. And so it's it's ever evolving, it's ever changing. And the thing is, if you want to move towards something that you really want in your life, you have to seize that moment now. There's no other time to seize that moment. You can't seize it tomorrow. You can't seize it the day after tomorrow. You can't, because there's being patient and then there's procrastinating. So it can be dichotomous, and I see what you're asking in the question, because it's a little tricky to determining between the two. Now, again, I'll come back to you as an example, just looking at what I've seen you do. Like you and I met, it's been about 8 months now, 7 months?
Yeah, September, I think, of last year. Or no, it was like middle of the summer, I think, is when I first visited BNI. So it was like July, I think.
Yeah, so it's about 8 months, right?
Yeah.
It's about, oh, wow, I guessed right off the bat. I didn't even mean to do that.
Yeah.
So 8 months that we've known each other. But in the time that I've known you and what I've watched you go through, you've had this idea and you've had this, and this is how it looks for me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like you've had this, I am doing this 3D printing and I'm making a business out of it. And you were working out of your bedroom in your parents' house, is that right?
Yeah, basement. Yeah.
Yeah, your basement in your parents' house, right? And now you've got like your own office, like you've got multiple machines, and you're doing it.
Thank you.
But when I see that, and this is so inspiring to me too, because to me, you're an example of what I want to create for people. Like this is, I got this vision. And I'm going for it. I'm doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a whole lot of pause. You didn't say, oh, well, maybe I'll look into that tomorrow. Maybe I'll, watch TV for now and get distracted by, and I'm just making that up.
Yeah. Well, basically what I had thought is I found myself, especially like I had technically founded the business of 2019, like the summer. And I created like a Facebook page, and I bought my first printer like April of my senior year of high school, and it was like this tiny little thing. And for people that know 3D printing, it's called a Monoprice Mini Delta. It had like a build volume of like 100 millimeter circle, and then it was like 150 tall, like really tiny printer. Mm-hmm. And I had printed some cool stuff, and in high school we had 3D printers. And my cousin, who really, told me, she's like, we need to do this business. I'm like, all right, cool. And I sort of was like, oh yeah, I have my own business, and I wasn't making any money with it. And I was sort of doing like keychains and stuff like that, little niche stuff, not really making a bunch of money. And I'm still not making crazy amounts, but like I did that up until like February. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to incorporate it, because then, I can sort of push myself, since it's an actual business, to try to make more sales. And I incorporated it February 27th of 2020. And then obviously like 2 weeks later, the whole world came to a screaming halt. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about 3D printing is it can be used for anything. And it sort of made me want to do it more, because I was at home and I was totally unmotivated to do online school. The only reason why I like school is because I was meeting people and I could go to campus, and I honestly enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And then we went online. I'm like, screw this. Like, this is stupid. And I found myself every morning getting up and playing Destiny on my Xbox, and for hours with a couple of my friends. And I'm just like, really? Like, this is what I'm going to be doing? Right. I'm not really going to school right now because it's online. It's a joke. And I'm just sitting here spending money on video games, and I wasn't working because I worked at the car wash, and they were totally like, they were only giving people hours that were full time, and they only got like a day a week because they were only open like 2 days a week because of COVID. And I'm just like, all right, I need to put more time. So instead of getting up every morning, I would, research 3D printers. I would find ways to, help market. And I had no clue what I was doing. I hadn't the slightest clue. And I sort of did that until school ended. And then I was introduced, and then sort of what brought my business to the next level was Sherry Curran.
Getting you into BNI.
Yes. She got me into the chamber. Mm-hmm. And then she got me introduced to BNI. And sure, throughout my membership with BNI, I've gotten business from people, like you, and I got business from Jay Vaughn and Jeremy Walsh and everything. But the thing I will forever, take as a takeaway from that, even if I left tomorrow, it'd be the things that I've been taught by the members like you, Jeremy Walsh, Jeremy Von Flatt, all those people, Larry Fish, and like those lessons that they taught me how to run a business, how to make business decisions and things like that are priceless. And that's what makes BNI worth it for me, because I think Jane Dyer said it. She's like, if you don't have an HR department, if you need somebody to talk to about business, that's what makes BNI awesome. And that's what's really catapulted my business to the next level. Not necessarily getting referrals from people in the group, just how to build the business, because everybody has been there at one point. So, right. That's sort of like the shortened version of, what's been going on, and how I started my business. But there's been a huge uproar. Like, my business isn't really that original. There's a huge uproar of this, and I love it, of like 3D printing and hobbyist level, because they're so affordable. Like the most expensive printer I have is only, $1,300. Like,
that's not bad.
So like it's anybody can get into it, who has a full-time job, and everybody finds that one niche product that they go and just mass produce, to a certain extent mass produce. But like there's this YouTuber who did mailbox flags. Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's how he got started, and it catapulted his business. He was able to buy more printers. He started a YouTube channel, and like there's a bunch of little products that you can make with your 3D printer, and then just sell a bunch of them. That sort of fuels your motivation, because you're like, oh, like I'm starting to see a little bit of money here, and you can use that as sort of like a platform, like I'm trying to do on social media side, because a lot more people are getting into 3D printing. This company called Creality, that's based out of, China, unfortunately. Just sold, they sold hundreds of thousands of 3D printers across the world.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I like to compare it to sort of like, well, I probably shouldn't talk about that, but like people that already have 3D printers are buying more 3D printers like me. And then you have the people that are buying one and just starting to get into it. And it's just like there's a company, I'm not sure, but the guy's called Galactic Armory, and he just 3D prints like Star Wars stuff. He has like 50 3D printers.
Wow.
In a garage.
That's impressive.
It's like, it's like my dream. And that guy is awesome. I watch his channel a lot. But yeah, like prototyping and things like that is really starting to come down in pricing because of these printers. It's not all industrial anymore. And I worked for a great company in Quonset, and they've taught me a lot about business. And I forgot to even say that I did an internship from May of last year to March of this year at a company called R&D Technologies in Quonset, and they do industrial 3D printing, and those guys are awesome. If I don't want to compete with them because of what they've done. Like that's like, I want to work with them because they're just amazing people there, and they taught me a lot about my, how to run business and 3D printing in general, because I had no clue about the industrial side of 3D printing until I worked for them.
Okay.
So, yeah, but you're my guest, so I'm gonna stop talking, because sometimes I just keep on talking like, and I won't shut up. So yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about before that, but
you were asking about the value of college
education.
And,
so
the need for that, and I set you up. In fairness, I set you up to talk because I was talking about the point of having a passion.
Yeah.
Now, so one of the things I can talk about briefly, I have permission to talk about the story a little bit, although not mentioning the person. But, one of my clients has come to me, and when you ask about like, what's it take? What's a change take? What's it mean? What's it matter? This person came to me. They were at the point where they were I was the last stop before going on to antidepressant medication. Like they were really, really at a low point in their lives, and they had antidepressant medication experience and didn't want that. But at the time, they were agoraphobic, like would not leave the house, couldn't go places that they didn't know about, anything like that. person actually was a smoker for 40 years, and within less than a year of working with me, they became tobacco free.
Wow.
And 2 years later, almost, it's just coming up on a 2-year anniversary from being completely tobacco free still after 40 years, which to me is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then as a result of getting that piece of life taken care of, getting rid of all the chemical stuff that was really binding her and holding her back, she got to a place where she was actually able to leave a job that she was feeling dissatisfied with, that was undervaluing her, and she has set up her own business training dogs all around the state. She drives all over the state of Rhode Island, and agoraphobic, driving all over the state by herself. Like the people's houses she doesn't know.
That's a great story.
That's powerful. And she's just taking on a leadership in her spiritual community. I know this, like that's a huge deal for a person who is agoraphobic. And she's just getting into a place right now where she's really reaching for some education so she can get towards some coaching of her own sorts. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I know because I had 3D printed that Eiffel Tower, and I don't know if you can talk about this, but I'd love to hear about the side of your business where you travel to different parts of the world. I know that's kind of tough because of COVID now, but when you did do it, so I don't know if you want to speak on that.
So I talked to you in the beginning of this about, going out of this place where I was feeling desperate for my life. And when I give my talks, I do talks, I'm doing online talks on a regular basis. I've got one coming up on Monday, as a matter of fact. And I do in-person workshops I guess I'm just about ready. I think things are opening up. I might be able to do something in person again soon, which is really exciting to me, because one always does better with that. In any case, when I give the workshop, I talk about the fact that, so from that, I've gotten to the point where, as the person who's an entrepreneur owning my own coaching business, my most highly invested VIP clients, come with me on a trip to the south of France. We go to spend a week in the south of France, and I spend that week doing deep dive work into these principles, and we talk about life transformation occurring, and it sets them up in a great space to do that. But we also include some time, of course, experiencing French culture, taking in wonderful French food in all these different restaurants in this little town outside of Marseille, and doing some stand-up paddleboarding in the Mediterranean Sea. So for me, this is combining my three favorite things in the world, which is coaching and helping people, and French culture, because I love everything French, and stand-up paddleboarding, which is absolutely one of my favorite things to do in the world. Yeah. So it's like, and when I talk about it, I say that not to impress people. Like, I don't want to impress you with that. It's to impress upon people the fact that if I can do that, if I can have this dream come true in my life, then you can too. Like, whatever your dream is, however it seems, however unreachable or far-fetched it may seem. Yeah. Like, and even when I start that dream, I didn't even know I had when I had started the coaching. Yeah. But I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah. That's really interesting because I honestly, like, I've heard of sort of your business before, but I never really met somebody that did it. And it's great to, because it's another great thing about BNI is that you meet people that you probably never would have met before. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of giving BNI free sponsorship here. So if BNI wants to sponsor this, go right ahead. But there you go. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more thankful for, that organization, and the people in our group in Wakefield. And, I just released that video with Jan, and I'd love to do more videos with people in, that sort of working together aspect because, 3D printing is so versatile. And something I forgot to mention is that, during the pandemic, I actually 3D printed masks. And, yeah, so basically I printed them flat on the build plate, and then use the soldering iron to melt the plastic together. Oh, wow. Yeah, and they were flexible, so it was sort of like one size fit all. And I could put like company names on the front of them, like the first guest I had on, Kurt. Harrington, I made him some for his guys, and it said something fishy on the front. Yeah, and they were
That's
blue.
awesome.
It was pretty cool. But yeah, so I think we're gonna take a quick break here, and it'll be instantaneous for you guys, but we'll be right back. Alrighty, we are back, and that was instantaneous for you guys, but Benjamin is going to talk a little bit more about, his work life before owning his own business and his background a little bit more. So, you can.
So thank you, Max. Yeah, no. So something about me, that not everybody knows, as a matter of fact. And since you asked the question, like, what would I like to talk about? Well, there was a time in my life my young adulthood, I was doing painting houses and building houses, framing houses, and that wasn't work that I was in love with really too much. I had studied some theater at the Community College of Rhode Island and was doing pretty well with that, but I didn't understand how I could really move forward and advance and make that a career, and I didn't believe I could. And just like Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, because I thought I couldn't. Although, having said that, I was building houses down in Tennessee, and I was like, there's just got to be some way I can get involved with some theater or something down here. And I had learned to juggle clubs while I was living in Tennessee. I'm a juggler, it's true. That's more fun to show than it is to talk about.
Yeah. Can you still juggle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I juggle all kinds of stuff. Clubs, knives, fire.
Have you juggled? Okay, fire. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty cool.
Fire is fun.
Yeah,
Sounds
well, maybe
cool.
if we get back in person in BNI, that can be like the thing you start off with is juggle. Set something on fire. That would be hilarious. But yeah, sorry, continue on.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I end up doing this construction work, and I had been living in Tennessee for actually, while I was living in Tennessee, I got hired by Tennessee Dance Theater to be a stage manager. And this is about how the principles that I'm teaching people had started working in my life even before I understood what they were and before I understood how they were working. Because I had this thing, like, I wanted to do some professional theater work, and there I get hired by Tennessee Dance Theater to be a stage manager. The first thing they asked me is, well, would you like to go to France with us for a week and stage manage in Paris for a week? I'm like, yes, please. Don't hurt me. Just twist gentle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I went to France for the first time in my life, and I was in my 30s. Anyhow, I fell in love with France. I fell in love with Paris. I fell in love with French culture, and I had this idea, I want to live there sometime. And this is kind of backfill for the fact that I end up going to France and studying to become a French teacher. Now, I brought home with me from France 2 prints of Paris, and I stuck them up on my bedroom wall, and I just kept looking at them, and I kept saying, I'm going to live in France someday. I know I am. I'm going to live there. I'm going to live there for at least a year. I have to live there for at least a year. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't have any idea. You could, like, from where I was, you couldn't have made it happen. Like, you can't connect the dots. But I ended up here in New England working one winter, and I threw my back out, and it was like the 4th or 5th time I had done that in a few years, and I was out on workman's comp, and I was like, I just can't keep doing this. This is not fulfilling work. I'm like, well, what am I going to do from here? I'm like, well, let's go back to school. I'm like, well, what am I going to go back to school for? I'm like, well, let's teach something. And long story short, it was French, because French was the best, the class in school that I got my highest grades in all the way throughout, which I didn't even know really. This took a little figuring out. And I was like, well, if I do that, that means I could go to France to study French too, which started to get into my mind. But I still didn't know that it could really happen. You know what I mean? And actually, I went to school up here, up the road at URI, and studied French there. And they've got one of the best French programs in the country. I have to put a plug in for them because it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had... They have the largest number of French students, I think, in all of the country.
Really? I didn't know that.
In their program, yes.
Wow, I didn't know that. Huh, that's interesting.
And they've got a great department, great teachers. Actually, a couple of them have retired that were there when I was there, but I'm sure they have filled in with others. as time has gone on, and they could absolutely had boasting rights for that. They also, had exchange student program, and, I started my first semester at school there, and I was like, you have an exchange program? Like, I was like, what? And so I filled out, I did all the application work to get myself into the exchange student program, and I spent a year in France studying French, which was great.
Wow.
And again, way back when I left Paris, did that look like a possibility for me?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Was that something that was going to happen? Could I have forced that to happen? Not so much. But, there's a thing of, just like with you and your business, like I got the idea. I'm like, well, I'm going to be a French teacher. And of course, the best way to learn language is to immerse yourself in the language culture. So I was like, I'm going to France. And I just put all my, I put my power and my energy into it. I'm like, I did all the things. I made all the steps. I applied for the financial aid. I did, I made the application. I did the interviews. And when I was talking to the teachers about becoming a teacher, they're like, oh, yeah, you, definitely. It wasn't.
Yeah. So would you say that you, I don't know, this is kind of, but off topic of the conversation, but what was it like in France? Do you like the culture, overall better there than here? Or do you think?
I still am in love with France when you get right down to it. The culture's just... It's a very different culture. Mm-hmm. So there are several things that happened for me in France. One of them is that we think of every culture as being so different from ours. And yet, underneath all the cultures, there is still the unification of the fact that we're all human. We have the same basic needs. We all want good food. We all want nice shelter. We all want, care for our families. We all want... we have those same basic human desires. That's what we are. Mm-hmm. But we have this idea, and I think particularly as Americans, where we get this idea that this is the thing, and but that's not true either, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world. As long as we've got this thing and it's only what's right here in front of us, we think our thing is the thing.
Yeah.
But there's no separation. We are all one, right?
Yes.
So, some of the things I loved best about France was that when I moved there the first time, I had a dog, and I was able to take my dog with me. And while I was living there, I took my dog everywhere that I went, which was really wonderful. She came on the metro. She came into the cafes. She came into the shops. She was everywhere with me. I loved that. I loved the simplicity of living, because I didn't own a car in France, nor did I drive, nor did I think I wanted to drive in France either, by the way. That was a pretty scary prospect for me.
Yeah, opposite side of the road.
No, same side of the road, just crazy drivers.
Is the wheel on the other side?
No, England, Ireland.
It's only English, what used to be English colonies, right? So Australia and England, the UK.
What I know for certain is the UK, Ireland, and Scotland. That's what I know for certain. I don't know if there are others as well, but I know it could be in India for that matter.
India, yeah. I think my dad has been to India a few times, and I think he said that. He said there really is no left or right side of the road. You just drive.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So Paris is like that. France was like that. I mean, I say like that, but it's not. I mean, they have the right side of the road you drive on, but driving is scary. I mean, the first time that I rode with somebody in a car while I was living in France, it was a friend of mine. I was living in Orléans, which is about an hour and a half outside of Paris, and it's a city nonetheless.
A little bit closer, yeah.
And so I'm living there, and he wants to take me to show me this park. I need to do this.
Yeah.
He wants to take me to show me this park. So I get in his car, and we're driving around, and these windy, curvy roads that we've got here.
Yeah.
Little windier, little curvier, and he's driving those at 60 miles an hour. And
we're super narrow too,
and
right?
They're narrow, and we're going around the bends. He's sliding over in the other lane, and he's just leaning on his horn as he comes around the bend. I'm holding on the bar. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't really looking forward to driving in France at all, which is funny because now that I take people to France, I do drive in France because in learning how to set that up, I had to go over and say, so what's it going to be if I drive in France? Because I'm like, it's going to be me being the tour guide, right? Like, so, so now I can drive in France, although I still do not want to drive in Paris.
Yeah.
Well, particularly because of what they call l'Étoile, which is the intersection around the Arc de Triomphe, which is like 8 major busy roads coming into one intersection, and it's a big roundabout. It's a roundabout that's got 6 lanes.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. How is there not 800 accidents there a day?
I don't know, and I don't want to find out, really.
Yeah. I mean, because it's an ancient city, and it wasn't built around infrastructure for roads like cars, right? So they had to adapt it. And it's just like, even if you go to like some of the older cities in the United States, it's not as bad because they're not as old, but like it's sort of like down, like old parts of Boston are really skinny, right? Like stuff like that, but not nearly as bad as France.
Well, I've heard it said about the difference between New York and Boston. New York's got the nice grid. It's like all up and down and then across and across and across because they want you to know where you are. And then you look at a map of Boston and they say, why? Because...
Yeah, exactly. It just happened. It just sort of like, oh, we're gonna put a road here and there, and then
because to hell with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good luck. Find your way.
Yeah, I don't like driving there. I mean, I driven there when I first bought my car, and it's a manual, and we were going to see Hamilton
in Boston. Nice. So you've seen that. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a play person. That was like the first one I've seen since like the 7th grade field trip when we went and saw Christmas Carol or whatever. But I was impressed. I was a little skeptical at first because I was like, I don't know what their sort of message was throughout the play. But I definitely thought that the singing was cool and catchy. I'm not really a hip hop person. I like country and rock and roll. But it was catchy. It was good. The people are very talented. And it wasn't like the main cast of Hamilton, like the one on
not
Netflix.
The original. Yeah, no.
It was but there was one guy that was there that I've definitely seen in a movie.
And
I can't remember his name for the life of me.
I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen it, so I still haven't seen it. I've just heard the rave reviews, and I know that they were sold out on Broadway for a year out.
Yeah.
So,
but anyways, we were coming off. It was going from 95 to 93 because that's what goes through the city, right? 93.
Yep.
And I was merging, and my uncle's in the passenger seat, my cousin's in the back, and like as soon as I merged, somebody almost like sideswipes me. I'm just like, oh, and there's traffic bumper to bumper and a manual car, and I'd only been driving stick for like 8 months at that point. So it was like clunk, clunk, clunk.
That's funny.
And it's like, my experience in driving in Boston wasn't that good. So next time I went there, which was last February, for a car show before COVID, which is funny because like it was all touchy everything, and I didn't catch COVID, and it was. They say it was still prevalent even in February before, all the shutdowns and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't a great experience driving it. So we took the train to the car show, and then we Ubered to because the train station and then the convention center are literally like a mile away from each other, I think.
Yeah, I'm really familiar with Boston. My family's from the Boston area. I have family history that goes all the way back to the American Revolution. I have a great all the way back there who rode Paul Revere across the river the night of his midnight ride. And
really?
Truth.
That's awesome. Because I mean, my grandfather was on my mom's side is Scottish. He passed away in 2002, and then my grandmother's 100% Italian. I like the Italian culture. And then my dad's side is all European stuff, so I don't really know. But
nice.
But my great grandparents came from Italy.
Okay.
I'm not really sure about my grandfather's side. I think it was the same for him. It might have been like great for me or something like that. But he was very proud of his Scottish heritage. My uncle, his son, actually wore a kilt to his wedding.
Oh wow.
Yes, and my aunt on her wedding, I wore a kilt, but I was like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 or something like that. So I really had no choice.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
what
yeah,
are you
they
gonna
were
do when they say jump this high, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's really cool though that your heritage goes back to that. I mean, I love American history.
Yeah, I have.
So.
And there was a great, I can't remember how many greats back there, but designed and built the dome on the State House in Massachusetts.
Yep.
Right there in the Boston Common, and also the kettle that hangs over Government Center. Have you been to Government Center? You know that?
In Massachusetts?
In Boston, yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, I've only been to like.
It's a tea kettle that hangs out and it's constantly steaming.
Yeah.
One of my greats back there built that too.
Okay, cool.
And our family emblem is the top of on top of Faneuil Hall, the cricket weather vane. So.
Oh, okay.
Little pieces of history that I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because, yeah, I mean, I don't really have family history like that, but I love my family, so I couldn't be any, luckier. Very supportive of me and my business too, always trying to help me find ways to grow and make smart business decisions and stuff like that. So I'm very lucky to have the family I have. But yeah, so I guess something else I wanted to talk about was modern day. I mean, I didn't really talk about this in the past 2 podcasts, but I want to delve in a little bit about marketing because your business isn't, I mean, I feel like it'd be really tough to market, right? Because it's not something where people are like, I need help. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
people don't fall out of bed in the morning saying, I need a life coach.
Yeah.
That is not something that happens all the time. But what does happen is that there's, I talk about this frequently when I'm giving talks, is that we have some longing and discontent. And there's, there's something that we want. We know there's more for us. Like, if you could put yourself in the story of when I was in the boatyard, like, have you ever had that experience where you're like, oh, I just wish there was more in my life? And, it takes that kind of drive, takes that wanting for something different to really, to get a person to be at the place where they're like, I want to do something different. I want it to be different. I want it to look different. I don't know what's going on and how do I do it?
Yeah.
That's, and so for me, when you ask about marketing for that, one of the best things I do is you've come in, you've visited my my morning mindset readings that I do on Facebook. And
yes.
That's
give Benjamin a follow on Facebook, by the way. I'll link him in the YouTube post.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's, I mean, I think it's worthwhile. And really, the principles that I teach and how this works, it's one thing to get the principles alone. And people can study this stuff and get some information. But if they're not taking action on the information, then it's just entertainment, really, when you get right down to it. And the thing about being a coach or having a coach is that you have somebody that you have accountability with. So as a coach, I am the accountability partner. It's, I'm the accountability partner with repeatable, reliable tools that help you get to where you want to go. And so how do I market? I mean, I try to get in front of people, get a know, like, and trust factor. How do I do that? I just try and put myself out there as much as I can.
Yeah.
I try and do some,
like BNI. That's
like
perfect
BNI,
for what?
BNI, absolutely, yes. And I love BNI for that, as a matter of fact. But, I often offer events where I'm speaking, and when I'm doing them live, whether I'm doing them online, that's,
Yeah.
that's where somebody says, yeah, I think this guy might have something for me.
Well, I guess from, just looking in it, I guess it's really tough because for somebody to say to themselves, I need you to help me be successful, is like, it's not as much as, I mean, you could do as much marketing as you want and selling and saying, you should probably talk to me if you have XYZ issues or something like that. And I guess like 99% of your customers come to you. It's not like,
that's absolutely true.
So it's not like me where I reach out to people like, cause you don't know, you know what I mean? So that's really, I mean, it'd be really tough. I mean, just looking in like,
from the vantage point that you're talking about, I understand what you're saying, and it certainly can be because, I can tell you, I can tell you the difference for me in what I'm doing. Like if I'm spending a lot of energy just doing a lot of mechanical stuff, that's not what gets me the clients. It's
Yeah.
when I'm actually putting my vision on that I am the successful coach and I
Yeah.
am like able to see myself doing the work that I'm doing. This is what I teach people to do. And you have to be able to step into the vision of living the life you want
Mhm.
in order for it to come to you.
Yeah. And I guess all that, like the lives you do and a lot of those webinars that you did webinars, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is perfect because you can put the content out there
Mhm.
and then people who want to find it will find it because they can just search it on Google or something like that and it's there for them. And it's sort of an automatic introduction,
Mhm.
I guess, which is perfect because then you're not like walking up to people saying, hey, you look like you have an issue with your life. You know, you know what I mean?
Which is,
Yeah.
which is never
Yeah.
very effective,
No,
by the way.
no.
People, and when you do that, they're like, what do you want? Why are you talking to me?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And no, I'm fine. Leave me
Yeah.
alone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. But cool. Well, it looks like it's almost, probably been like 45, 50 minutes. But I really like to tie things up with if you wanted to leave with, this one sort of life lesson, one quote, this is what you want to be remembered for, what would that be?
One quote that I would want to be remembered for.
Yeah, because I know it's loaded, but like I think it's
That is.
everybody has a different vantage point on life, and it's great to hear like the tagline of everybody's story, sort of.
So I'll tell you, it's interesting. So, you're asking about one thing. So and there's so many different aspects because, I'm a Reiki healer. I just became certified to be a transcendence facilitator, which is a body movement energy healing with ourselves, which is a fascinating experience for me. I was not expecting that a year ago, that I would become this person. And I say that because my business name is a creative healing place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in getting the title for that name, I think of I have kept it as a life coach because when I look at what happens for people when they really start stepping into their lives, into the dreams that they would love living, what happens is that they heal. They become the person that they were meant to be all along to begin with. And so there is a healing that takes place even if they didn't know they needed it, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the tagline I put behind a creative healing place is return to yourself, and return to yourself because, so oftentimes we're stuck in these jobs that we don't like and we think we have to be here. We have to work this many hours. We have to, or we're in relationships where we've got people who are, dictating our worth and we're allowing them to dictate our worth. And my whole thing is to get people to step into their empowerment, their own personal empowerment. And, it's not that I want to have a lot of students following me. That's not the goal. My desire is to help empower the most number of people to live lives that are really full, rich lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is that if there were more people on the planet, and who is it? Howard Thurman says this. He says, if you want to know what to do with your life, he said, discover what it is that makes you passionate, and then whatever it is that makes you passionate, go out and do that, because what the world needs is more people who are doing that.
Yeah.
That's what the world needs.
Yeah.
And truthfully, if the world were full of people doing that, we'd have a much happier world.
Yeah. Because
and a lot more peace.
Exactly. That's perfect. I often say throughout, this podcast, success doesn't mean money. And a lot of people entail those two things. They say, well, that guy's really successful. But I look up to Steve Jobs. I love that guy. And the beginning of his life, he was worth several $100 million. By the time he was 40, and the guy was miserable, jerk. He was successful with money, but he had a daughter who he didn't say was his daughter, and the girl who was the daughter's mother, he really loathed her, and it was like, that sucks.
Yes.
It sucks. And that guy was not successful.
Right.
He had a lot of money, but didn't mean he was successful. But I really like him because throughout, I feel like he matured as a person as towards the end of his life, because I love the Steve Jobs movie with Michael Fassbender. It's like I watch it all the time, gives me chills. I love it.
What's the movie? I haven't heard of.
It's Michael Fassbender. The Steve Jobs movie came out like 2015.
Okay.
It was like, because there was the Ashton Kutcher one, and that one was bad.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Michael Fassbender did one. It was awesome.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like, but like, I love that movie, and I love Steve Jobs because I think that movie perfectly entrails sort of how he progressed as a person. Because at the end of the movie, the girl's like just graduating high school, going into college. He finally comes to grip to how bad of a person he was, and he balances his business life, and he starts to become super successful. And you see that he didn't master, but he became a much better family person. And then you saw his business. He came out with the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, all after he really became a better family person.
Right.
And that bounced back, because if you look before that, there was the original Macintosh and the Lisa, and those things are major flops.
Right.
And then he made amends with his family, and then boom.
Well, and there's a lot of truth to that, and that's part of the work that I do with people. You have to get into some healing stuff. Sometimes, I mean, people get into this work, they have no idea. They're like, there are places we're stuck, and we're stuck for a reason, and it's primarily because we keep ourselves stuck. And there's things to grow through. But the principles of wealth, when you look at people like Napoleon Hill or Andrew Carnegie or Wallace Wattles, like all the things that they taught throughout the ages are the principles that are still valuable today. And actually, I'll tell you this. I don't know if you've heard this, but Andrew Carnegie was known in his time as being the wealthiest person in the world, right? But it's also because of Andrew Carnegie that we have libraries as we know them. Like any town in the United States of America that has a library, we owe that to Andrew Carnegie. And why? Because he spent the first half of his life making his wealth, and then the second half of his life giving the wealth away. And he hired Napoleon Hill to write about the code that makes wealthy people wealthy. Now, this is an interesting story, and it's a story I use for teaching. If you don't mind, I'll share it with you here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we got time. I said that, but we have plenty of time. We can go as long as we want.
Because here's the thing. Napoleon Hill was a newspaper reporter in his early 20s, right? And he went to go interview. I have to do this.
Yeah. Because it's just not that sensitive.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah.
It's good. So Napoleon Hill was a newspaper reporter in his early 20s, and he got the opportunity to interview Andrew Carnegie, and he went out to Andrew Carnegie's house for a weekend, and because Andrew Carnegie granted him that. But he didn't realize that he was being interviewed by Andrew Carnegie also at the same time to see if he would be fit person to do this job. Now, Andrew Carnegie invited Napoleon Hill to spend the weekend. After an hour talking with him, he's like, why don't you stay with me for the weekend? We can spend all day tomorrow and, maybe have dinner Sunday evening and call it good. And Napoleon Hill was like, great, I'd love to do that. And at the very end of it, Andrew Carnegie invites Napoleon Hill into his office, and he says, so I've got an offer I'd like to make you. He says, and Andrew Carnegie knows one thing for himself, and that is that this is a decision that must be made quickly. He says, Napoleon Hill, I'm going to offer you my Rolodex of 500 wealthiest people in the world, and I'll arrange interviews for you with them, and I'll let you make sure that you get meetings to interview them and talk to them, as long as you're willing to write about what you find that makes them wealthy. Because when you interview these people, he said, I'm not going to pay you a penny for this. I'm not going to pay you one penny. But I assure you, if you interview these people, you will become wealthy, because you will discover the secrets about what makes all these people wealthy. And so Napoleon Hill's sitting there. Andrew Carnegie has just finished the offer, and Napoleon Hill doesn't know this, but he clicks a stopwatch underneath the table. And he gives him 60 seconds to answer. And he knows that if Napoleon Hill waits till 61, 62, 63 seconds, the offer's off the table. Because one thing Andrew Carnegie understands is that people who make who have wealth, they make decisions quickly and they follow through with them. 33 seconds, Napoleon Hill says, I'll do it. Now, here's a man who is barely making money to pay his rent as a newspaper reporter. He's not being offered a penny to do this, and yet he says, I'll do it. Now, Napoleon Hill wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, which I don't know if you've heard of yet, or if you haven't read it.
No.
Actually, that's a book you ought to read.
Okay.
And I would recommend that to anyone in your audience members too. Think and Grow Rich. All the wealthiest people in the world have read that book. And Andrew Carnegie made approximately 1,000 millionaires. Napoleon Hill made thousands of millionaires.
Wow. Yeah. That's a great story. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I could go on and on and on and on, but I don't have a focus point right now because
that's fine. Well,
but the thing is, I've got plenty to teach and plenty to tell, and that's that. Sorry, I'm letting the microphone go away too. I have plenty to teach, plenty to tell, but this is my passion, and I love to do this.
It's awesome.
I mean, as you can tell, I hope.
Yeah, definitely.
Here, so.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I definitely appreciate you making the hike down here to the country in Richmond, Rhode Island from the big city up there in Warwick. For those of you guys don't know, he drove basically half the state to get here, but you got to remember it's Rhode Island.
It is Rhode Island, but still.
Yeah, but it's been great. So that's about it, guys. And if you have any questions or want to be on the podcast or possibly want to sponsor it, email me at knowledgeispowerri@gmail.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to check out all the links below in the description. And if you're on Spotify, make sure to follow and share it with all your friends, because I'm going to have a lot more great guests just like Benjamin on talking about their life experiences. So thanks for listening, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.